everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today, coming to you from the Sports Interaction Studio, where we always got something to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playlog. And in this one, we're going to be talking about the latest rumblings surrounding Bo Bichette. His market right now, it's really starting to take shape, and there is a lot of competition that's gunning after him, which of course is inevitably going to raise his price tag. We're going to talk about the Jays' chances. We're going to talk about how they should navigate this whole thing. And then if they don't end up bringing back Bo Bichette, what is that going to mean? And how are they going to continue to be a competitive ball team and concoct this roster in the best way possible to make it back to the World Series? If you haven't already done so, hit that like, smash that subscribe button. And if you have the option to, hit that hype button if you're enjoying all of this Blue Jays offseason coverage. Let's immediately get into the competition, okay? This was recently reported by former GM Steve Phillips, and he's saying that right now 9 teams are in the mix for Bo Bichette. Those teams are the Red Sox, the Tigers, the Royals, the Mariners, Phillies, Mets, Braves, Dodgers, and Giants. And of course, he doesn't name it right there, but it's the Toronto Blue Jays. So anyone who's anyone is in on Bo Bichette right now.
Yeah, and you don't need me to tell you, obviously Bo Bichette's a great player. He's got one of the best bats in all of baseball. And if you're a big bat guy and a swing mechanic guy, then you would say he is the best bat in all of baseball. The way he can cover any part of the plate and put the ball barrel to the ball. Now, the big thing with Bo Bichette that might have scared off a lot of teams is the fact that this guy, can't play defense. I mean, he could play shortstop, but compared to other shortstops around the league and other teams that have shortstops, you're probably not prioritizing shortstop, the defensive shortstop of Bo Bichette over the current shortstops you have. But it hasn't scared off a lot of teams. Jeff Passan came out here and confirmed it, but teams haven't been scared off of Bo Bichette's shortstop. So what does that mean? Well, there's a few things you got to factor in right there. You know, if you're getting a guy to come in to be your shortstop, you're going to pay him as a shortstop. Well, not only with the great bat, you're paying him for the great bat, but you're playing him to be a shortstop, right? And very different from second base. If you're coming in for second base, you're not expected to do much defensively, but a shortstop's a commanding position. So what does that mean for the contract? Might be up there where the Blue Jays were thinking, that high $100 million, maybe even the low $200 million for a shortstop with a great bat like Bo Bichette.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you even had Mark Feinsand come out and suggest, or sorry, not Mark Feinsand, it was Steve Phillips as well, but suggesting that in fact, it might even be $250 million, which is not really a number that we've been necessarily thinking about when we consider Bo Bichette. But at the end of the day, you know, you were bringing him up, and I mean, in any given heavy year or any given healthy year, he could hit for 200 hits, right? So like, he does have one of the best bats in all of baseball. And if there's other squads out there, you know, I mean, like, you name any of them, right? There's so many different teams, like the Red Sox, or, you know, like somebody else who is starting to push the narrative a little bit here and saying, hey, we want him at shortstop. Well, if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, like, you know, you can't just come in here and say, well, we want you at second base, so we're going to get $100 million less. No, you're going to have to match that price tag, even if you only want him at second base. So that starts to beg the question, well, is $250 million too much for a guy who would, you know, honestly, at that point, like, sure, he'd play second base for you, but you're basically just paying for the bat at that point. Does that start to outprice you when it comes to the Bo Bichette conversation? Like, there's a lot of things to consider here.
Because you got to consider, if the price tag's getting up to $250 million, like Steve Phillips saying, it'd be a 10-year deal. And if you're looking at Bo Bichette right now as a 27-year-old, will be 28 going into next year. Okay, well, now you have a guy going to his age 37 season right at the end of his contract, assuming he signs the 10-year deal. You know, what is he going to have left in him? Well, you can assume a couple things, right? You got to assume the legs are going to be gone. They're already gone. Like, the legs are already starting to be gone for Bo Bichette. The defense, doesn't really deteriorate for a lot of guys, but doesn't really matter for Bo Bichette. You just got to hope that the bat's still there, the contact ability, which usually is there, usually after a longer career. The power is usually there. Bo Bichette's power is kind of mediocre as well. But look, I think his contract is going to age well. So if you're the Blue Jays, you got to ask yourself, are you willing to take on a 10-year deal for a guy to play with Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Now, I think he would be open later on in his career if he really doesn't have his legs under him to move over to second base or even a DH position, right? Like, I think there's still flexibility there.
No,
you don't have to marry him.
Well, I think that, I think that regardless of what happens, I think that Bo Bichette, if he comes back to the Toronto Blue Jays, is going to be playing second base. And I just think that's, again, you're paying too much money for Andres Gimenez, and the one thing that guy provides is the defense, right? So it's like you're not just gonna throw that money at the window unless you decided to somehow trade Andres Gimenez or something like that. Like I think that the Toronto Blue Jays, they would have to come to terms with paying Bo Bichette the money as a shortstop,
right?
But then playing him at second base, and that's something where I don't know if they're going to have a disconnect.
And that's right. The question for Bo Bichette is, what do you prioritize? I know that he's prioritized, staying with one team, playing with Vladdy, playing on a winning team, but does he prioritize playing shortstop? You know what I mean? Is he willing to punt that away? Because I think the Blue Jays would pay him shortstop money to play second base, but if he's like, you know what, I actually just really want to play shortstop, and that's things that we're not privy to. We don't know that, right? Because I mean, let's face it. The way to win the ball game better, you play him at second base or not even on the field at all at DH, right? That's how you win ball games. We saw it almost happen in the World Series.
And I do want to be very clear, whilst there are teams right now that are looking at him at that shortstop position and it hasn't been shying the way, that's not every single team, okay? They bring up the New York Mets in there. Well, the New York Mets have Francisco Lindor. And they're not about to, even if they were to go and get Bo Bichette, they're not about to move Frankie Lindor, who's a Gold Glover at the end of the day, there's a pecking order here right now. So it's not every single team, but a team like the Detroit Tigers, for instance, who are they married to over there? They could easily put Bo Bichette there should they decide to do so. So there are certainly going to be squads in the mix right now, competitive teams as well, playoff teams that are still looking at Bo Bichette as that shortstop position. And the fact of the matter is, he might leave the board sooner rather than later. This is from Mark Feinsand, and this was reported very recently after the Josh Naylor signing. He came out and he was saying he believes the two guys most likely to leave the board next are Kyle, not Tucker, Schwarber, and also Bo Bichette. And I fully agree with his reasoning. Kyle Tucker could leave at any time, but he could also be on the board for a long period of time because you are talking about a big contract right there. But Kyle Schwarber and Bo Bichette, they might get the deal that they're looking for because there's a lot of teams in the mix right here. It's going to break the bank, but it's also not going to break the bank either to bring one of them in. They could get a deal. Let's just say the Phillies decide to go balls to the wall here and offer, Bo Bichette his $220 million. He might just say that he's going to accept that right away. And that's kind of what Mark Feinsand's saying is that either one of those individuals could leave the board pretty soon.
And I think a bigger part of that too as well is Josh Naylor wanted to sign back with the Mariners, right? That's why he signed so early. He wanted to be a Mariner, and he signed back and actually took a very team-friendly deal to be with the Mariners. I thought he could have got a lot more money, but he said, you know what? I just want to get this done and over with. I want to be a Mariner, and I'm going to be a Mariner. So if Bo Bichette had that same mentality, theoretically he could sign earlier, but I do believe that he made it to free agency for a reason, and we're seeing all this competition for him out there. I think he's going to take a little bit more time to go and play that market, whereas Kyle Schwarber, maybe a little bit differently. There might be some teams definitely interested in Kyle Schwarber, but Kyle Schwarber's at the end of his career. He's already had a few paydays in his past. Maybe he just wants to go back and play for the Phillies and accept whatever deal they give me, and Phillies got a lot of money they could offer to him. So I think he could leave the board early, but Bo Bichette, I got a feeling, will probably take a little bit longer based on how many eyeballs are looking at him.
Sure. And I guess, to that point as well, right now that you do have so much of a variation in market value from so many different teams and how they're looking at you and where you're going to play and what you're going to do for this squad, and the money's different. There is a lot to consider with Bo. Either way, that's what Mark Feinsand's thinking. I'm kind of hoping that, if he did come off the board immediately, that would probably mean that the Jays are winning that thing. But with all of the reports that are coming out right now, it honestly, it feels like Toronto, funnily enough, it feels like Toronto actually has a better chance or is talked about more right now with Kyle Tucker than they are with Bo Bichette.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know what it really, I think it's just whatever is kind of being leaked out into the rumor mill right now, because there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes with Bo Bichette that we're just not knowing. Whereas Kyle Tucker's the sexy, he's the belle of the ball right now. Everyone wants to know where Kyle Tucker is going in this free agency. And Kyle Tucker with the Blue Jays, to your point, that's all we're hearing is Blue Jays, Kyle Tucker, they're the favorites. And that came out from Jeff Passan again, that the Blue Jays are favorites for Kyle Tucker still. He does believe that the Blue Jays, after a World Series run, would be going after Kyle Tucker.
And I'm going to just clarify that just a little bit. I'm taking the S off of favorites. He said the favorite.
Yeah, the favorite.
It's because there's a difference when it's we're one of the favorites or we are the favorite. And that's apparently how he's referring to it right now, or MLB GM's executives are. So yeah, it's interesting to note that it's like, well, even though I still think there's a better chance that we get Bo Bichette back, we're being talked about more with Kyle Tucker. Exciting, also a little scary and nerve-wracking too.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, we don't exactly know what's going on with the market, right? Like, again, like I said, like, there could be a lot of things going behind the scenes, but it begs the question yet again, we brought it up on this channel, like, if you can only sign one of these players, who are you signing? Is it Tucker or is it Bo Bichette? Everyone in the comments, I've seen a lot of people discuss this online. The people who are leaning on Bo Bichette, and I completely hear where you're coming from. It's more of like we got to get this guy back for the Bo and Vlad camaraderie, right? It's like, we got to get the homegrown talent back. Absolutely awesome. Whereas the people leaning on Kyle Tucker, it's like no brainer, duh. Kyle Tucker is a beast and he is a 5-tool player, whereas Bo Bichette is not a 5-tool player. They're roughly the same age, but Kyle Tucker could win an MVP any given year. So obviously, if you're looking at that and you're forgetting about the camaraderie, you go Kyle Tucker. But there is an element of, we watched this team gel so well, go to the World Series. Do we really want to disrupt that and not bring Bo Bichette back if we can only pick one or the other?
Yeah, I think it's a really good debate, actually. And it's tough to know. Like, this is one of those ones where hindsight's going to be crucial. And and that's probably the only way of really knowing, right? Because I do think that there is so many different ways of looking at this. And then also, that's not even factoring in the money, where it's like Kyle Tucker should be getting paid more than Bo Bichette. Granted, now if Bo Bichette's price tag is going to be in the $250 million range, I mean, what's an extra 150, right? Like, we are talking crazy money regardless. Yeah. I tend to land on the Kyle Tucker side of things in that debate, and that's not me saying that I don't want Bo Bichette. I would be eccentrically over the moon if they were to bring back Bo Bichette, and I agree with a lot of the arguments that people are making with the camaraderie, with the fact that he's gelled with this team. That, I totally agree with you as well. He's an incredible hitter, but I do think from a roster makeup standpoint as well, like, they have Andres Jimenez there at shortstop. We got Ernie Clement in this mix as well. He's been awesome. Barzer's in this mix. He's been awesome in the infield. And then the truth of the matter is, Kyle Tucker is just a more complete baseball player. And I think that he is going to be a better baseball player for the remainder of his career than Bo Bichette is going to be a baseball player. So when you have an option to sign somebody who I do truly believe is going to get MVP votes on effectively every single healthy year, that being Kyle Tucker, I think that you just have to shoot that shot. I would not at all be upset, though, if Bo Bichette comes back and they just run it back with what they had.
Of course not, right? I mean, you brought it up right here. Any given year, a healthy year, he is literally an
Funnily
MVP.
Enough, he did not get MVP votes this year,
which is kind of wild.
I know. I was kind of wild. I was shocked at that as well. And then the year prior, I mean, he was hurt. Insane, but he got hurt for half the year. So funnily enough, he didn't get MVP votes this year, which I was kind of surprised at.
Now, a lot of people are saying, well, why not both? Now, I do want to zoom out a little bit. If the Toronto Blue Jays manage to get back Bo Bichette and also sign Kyle Tucker, everyone would be looking at Blue Jays like, holy shit, this is one of the greatest offseasons we've ever seen. Like, getting both of those dudes back, and you probably got to assume the Blue Jays aren't just going to skimp out on the starting pitching too. If they're going to get both those guys, you might as well go get like a Ranger Suarez type, go get a top of the rotation type of guy. If that happens, yeah, we're looking at what the Mets did back, last few years.
Mets
all in one season.
Or the Dodgers.
Or the Dodgers.
Too. I mean, I remember that offseason. I forget who they all brought in, but that offseason where the Dodgers got Yamamoto, and then they also brought in, I think that they also signed, I forget if it was Blake Snell that offseason. They did something ridiculous where it was just like
Tyler Glasnow. They traded for Tyler Glasnow.
So much money invested. It was just crazy ball. And that was after they brought in Ohtani the year prior. I mean, that would be LA Dodgers levels of crazy. I'm not going to talk myself into thinking that's actually going to happen. Right. It did come out from Bob Nightingale that there is a possibility, there is a world where both of them could come here, and they are in the conversations with both of them. So who knows, right? Like, get a couple beers in the boys, and Bo's like, fuck it, let's go win a World Series. You get Kyle Tucker, I'll sign for short term, and we'll make this magic happen. Likely scenario, though, is that one of them is not going to be a Toronto Blue Jay, and we're just hoping that one of them is going to be a Toronto Blue Jay. We are the favorite to sign Kyle Tucker. Bo Bichette, whilst I still also believe us to be the favorite, there's a lot of competition there. Yeah. And now that, he's in free agency, he doesn't have any ties, or he doesn't have any obligations to us. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to come back here. There's so many other squads.
Well, I will say, though, I think I've said this before, we do have, I believe, the tiebreaker. For many of the reasons like I brought up earlier, He wants to stay with one team his entire career. He wants to win a World Series with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and he wants to win on a winning ball team.
Yeah.
Well, the only other winning ball team that's more winning than the Blue Jays is the Dodgers, and I think they're kind of full over there. And I mean, I'd be shocked if he went over to the Dodgers. That's not even one of the teams that they mentioned, I don't believe.
We could bring it up again.
Yeah.
I always thought that the Dodgers would be in on these conversations just because that is, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they are in on, but they can't do it again. But regardless, those are the elements that he wants. The Dodgers can't provide Vladdy, and they can't provide staying on one team his whole career. So if Bo Bichette is a man of his word to the media, the Blue Jays got the favorites right now.
Yes, unless they can provide the shortstop position, which the Toronto Blue Jays, whilst there are some teams that are interested in it, maybe they're not.
And you never know. The Blue Jays, I mean, Ross Atkins and the boys, they might just give it to him. They might just give it to him. They might just give it to him. I would think would be a mistake, but that's another podcast right there. But folks, let us know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below. That is the latest right now on the Bo Bichette market. Toronto Blue Jays obviously in the mix, but favorite for Kyle Tucker, and God only knows with all of these teams what could happen. If you haven't already done so, hit that like, smash that subscribe button, hit the hype button as well. $4 a month become a YouTube member. And thank you to all of our current YouTube members. You guys are amazing. Guys, thank you so much for watching.
And as always,
go Jays, go!